Wisdom doesn't announce itself. It doesn't walk into a room demanding recognition. Real wisdom shows in the way you live, the choices you make, and the energy you bring into the world. People often confuse wisdom with knowledge. Knowledge is about what you've memorized, what facts you can recite, how much information you carry in your head. But wisdom is different. It's quieter, deeper. It's how you apply what you know in the moments that matter. It's how you treat others, how you manage yourself, and how you navigate life's storms without losing your center. Think of the people you've met who always have something to say, who try to prove how smart they are with every sentence. Now think of the ones who don't need to announce themselves at all, yet when they finally speak, the whole room pays attention. That's wisdom. It doesn't compete, it doesn't perform, it simply is. And here's the truth: wisdom is rare. In a world that celebrates noise, instant gratification, and appearances, it's easy to overlook the quiet strength of the wise. But wisdom leaves signs, not in what people declare about themselves, but in how they move through the world. In this video, we'll uncover 7 powerful signs that you may be wiser than most people around you. These signs aren't about perfection or pretending to know everything. They're about clarity, humility, and courage, qualities that make wisdom visible in the way you live each day. So as you listen, ask yourself, which of these signs already show up in my life? Which ones am I still learning? You may discover that you've been carrying wisdom within you all along, quietly, steadily, waiting for you to recognize it. Sign 1. You listen more than you speak. One of the clearest signs of wisdom is this: you listen more than you speak. In a world where everyone is rushing to be heard, the wise take a step back. They know that silence is not empty. It's full of truths that words often miss. When you choose to listen, you're not just hearing sounds. You're observing patterns, reading emotions, and picking up on the unspoken language that reveals far more than words alone. Listening is an act of humility. It says, your perspective matters. I don't have all the answers. And in that humility, wisdom grows. The ancient Stoics believed that we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen twice as much as we speak. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you, not with their phone in hand, not waiting for their turn to respond, but fully present. You likely felt valued, understood, maybe even lighter. That's the gift wise people give. By listening deeply, they create space for truth to emerge. On the other hand, those who rush to speak often reveal more about their ego than their insight. Arrogance wants to be heard. Wisdom wants to understand. The wise know that speaking too quickly can close doors, while listening can open them. They recognize that every person, even the ones they disagree with, carries a piece of the puzzle. And by listening first, they collect those pieces and see the bigger picture. So if you often find yourself listening more than talking, don't mistake it for weakness. It's a quiet strength, one that marks you as wiser than most. Sign 2. You admit what you don't know. Another sign of wisdom is the courage to say, I don't know. In a world that rewards certainty, pretending often feels easier than admitting ignorance. But arrogance pretends, while wisdom learns. The truly wise understand that not knowing is not weakness. It's the starting point of discovery. Think of Socrates, who famously declared that his wisdom came from knowing he knew nothing. By admitting the limits of his knowledge, he opened the door to endless learning. Contrast that with the person who always needs to be right, who argues without listening, who would rather cling to a false answer than face the discomfort of uncertainty. One is trapped, the other is free. When you admit what you don't know, you show humility, but you also show strength. You're strong enough to be a student of life, to ask questions, to seek truth rather than perform expertise. This makes you more trustworthy, not less, because people sense authenticity. Have you ever noticed how refreshing it feels when someone simply says, I don't know, but I'll find out? There's no posturing, no ego, just honesty and curiosity. That is wisdom in practice. The wise see knowledge not as a trophy to be displayed, but as a river to step into. They understand that there will always be more beyond their reach, and that this is not something to fear, but to embrace. So if you've ever admitted you didn't know and chose to listen, research, or ask instead. Know this: you're not less intelligent, you're wiser, because wisdom begins where arrogance ends. Sign 3. You value time over money. One of the clearest marks of wisdom is recognizing that time is more valuable than money. Money can be lost and earned again. You can rebuild fortunes, restart careers, and recover financial losses. But time? Once it's spent, it's gone forever. The wise understand this difference, and it shapes the way they live. They invest their hours with care. Instead of chasing every dollar, they ask, will this cost me my peace? Will it rob me of my time with loved ones? Will it pull me away from what truly matters? This doesn't mean money isn't important, but it does mean money isn't the master. Consider how many people sacrifice decades climbing ladders, collecting wealth, only to look back and realize they missed sunsets, family dinners, and the quiet joys of life. Wisdom sees that trap clearly and refuses to walk into it. The wise measure wealth not in coins or accounts, but in moments well spent. A conversation with someone they love, an evening of silence, a walk under the stars. These are treasures no market can buy back once lost. Even when making financial choices, wise people think in terms of time. They'll spend money on something that frees up their hours, or they'll decline an opportunity that consumes too much of their life for too little return. It comes down to this: money is a tool, but time is life itself. And those who value time above money live with a kind of richness that wealth alone could never provide. If you've ever chosen presence over profit, memories over material gain, that's wisdom guiding you. Sign 4. You see through appearances. Another quiet sign of wisdom is the ability to see through appearances. Most people are caught up in surfaces, how someone looks, what they wear, what they own, or how perfectly they present themselves to the world. But wisdom sees deeper. It asks, what lies beneath the surface? What kind of heart? What kind of mind? What kind of character am I really looking at? Appearances are easy to manipulate. A smile can hide bitterness. A curated social media profile can conceal emptiness. Expensive clothes can disguise insecurity. But no matter how polished the mask, the truth of a person will reveal itself in their actions, in how they treat others when no one is watching. The wise are not easily fooled by glamour or charm. They look for consistency, integrity, and substance. They recognize that beauty without kindness or success without humility is hollow. And they know that depth is often hidden where few bother to look. Think of the times you've met someone who seemed impressive at first, but over time, their actions told a different story. Or someone who went unnoticed at first glance, yet turned out to be one of the most genuine and trustworthy people you've ever known. That shift in perception is the gift of wisdom, to withhold judgment until truth reveals itself. In a world obsessed with appearances, seeing through them is rare. But if you've ever chosen character over image or substance over shine, you're already moving with wisdom most people overlook. Sign 5. You control your emotions. One of the strongest signs of wisdom is emotional control. Not the suppression of feelings, but the ability to guide them instead of being ruled by them. Anyone can lash out in anger, drown in despair, or get swept up in excitement without thinking. But the wise recognize that emotions are like weather, powerful, temporary, and not always a reliable guide. Instead of denying their emotions, they observe them, acknowledge them, and choose how to respond. The Stoics compared emotions to wild horses. If you try to kill the horse, you lose its strength. But if you let it run wild, it will throw you off and drag you into danger. Wisdom lies in learning how to hold the reins, letting the horse move, but guiding it where it needs to go. Think of a heated argument. Most people react instantly, their words like sparks fueling the fire. But the wise pause. They breathe. They let the first wave of emotion wash over them before deciding what to say. That pause may last only a second, but in that second, everything changes. A fight becomes a conversation. A conflict becomes a lesson. Or think of disappointment. When plans collapse, the unwise drown in frustration. But the wise ask, what can I learn? How do I adapt? They don't ignore the pain, but they refuse to let it blind them to possibilities. Emotional control isn't coldness, it's clarity. It allows you to feel deeply without being enslaved by what you feel. And that clarity is rare in a world where most people let their moods decide their actions. If you've ever chosen calm when anger tempted you, or patience when fear pushed you, you've walked in wisdom's footsteps. Sign 6. You choose long-term growth over short-term pleasure. Wisdom always looks beyond the moment. While most people chase what feels good right now, the wise ask, what will this choice mean tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now? It's easy to grab the short-term reward, the impulse purchase, the night of indulgence, the quick victory that costs you later. But wisdom has patience. It knows that real growth is built through discipline, sacrifice, and consistency. Think of a tree. A matchstick flares bright for a second, then disappears into ash. But a seed planted in good soil grows slowly, steadily, until it becomes something lasting. The wise choose the seed over the matchstick. They choose habits that compound, decisions that build, investments that grow into something greater. This shows up everywhere. Choosing to save instead of spend recklessly. Choosing to learn a skill instead of wasting time on distractions. Choosing to walk away from shallow relationships and build ones that endure. These choices may not give the rush of instant pleasure, but they create lives filled with meaning and strength. And here's the paradox. Short-term pleasure often leaves regret, but long-term growth eventually brings deeper joy. The kind of joy that can't be taken away. Modern culture tells us to live for the moment, to grab whatever makes us feel good now. But wisdom whispers, don't trade what you want most for what you want now. If you find yourself thinking ahead, making decisions that protect your future instead of only satisfying your present, you are already practicing a rare kind of wisdom. Because anyone can enjoy the spark, but the wise cultivate the flame that lasts. Sign 7. You prefer solitude over shallow company. One of the clearest signs of wisdom is the willingness to walk alone rather than surround yourself with shallow company. Many people fear solitude. They rush to fill their calendars, crowd their space with noise, and cling to groups that don't truly nourish them. But the wise see solitude differently. They know that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Alone, you can hear your own thoughts. Alone, you can sharpen your mind, reflect, and grow in ways that shallow company can never provide. Shallow company, on the other hand, drains. It keeps you distracted, entertained perhaps, but never fulfilled. It asks you to wear masks, to play roles, to shrink or stretch yourself into shapes that don't fit. And over time, it leaves you emptier than solitude ever could. Wisdom chooses quality over quantity. One honest friend is worth more than 100 empty companions. One quiet evening with your own soul can teach you more than hours of meaningless chatter. Think of the great thinkers and creators throughout history. Philosophers, artists, inventors, leaders. Nearly all of them carved out solitude, not because they rejected people, but because they needed space to think, to create, to align with their deeper selves. The wise don't fear being misunderstood when they walk alone. They know that solitude is the soil where self-mastery grows, and they trust that when they do invite others into their circle, those connections will be deeper, richer, and real. If you've ever chosen to step back from shallow groups, to sit with your own company instead, you've shown wisdom, because solitude, embraced with courage, is not emptiness, it's clarity. Wisdom doesn't shine through loud declarations or grand performances. It shows itself in the quiet patterns of daily living, in how you listen, how you choose, how you see the world. You've heard 7 signs. You listen more than you speak. You admit what you don't know. You value time above money. You see through appearances. You control your emotions. You choose long-term growth over short-term pleasure, and you'd rather walk alone than settle for shallow company. Each of these may seem small on their own, but together, they paint a portrait of someone who is walking through life with rare clarity. And here's the most important truth. Wisdom is not about being flawless or knowing everything. It's about living with humility, courage, and perspective, day after day, moment after moment. Most people chase after the image of being wise, respected, or admired. But the truly wise don't chase. They simply live in alignment with what matters. They let go of ego. They prioritize truth. They choose growth, even when it's uncomfortable. And because of that, their lives quietly become examples for others. If you recognized yourself in even a few of these signs, give yourself credit. Wisdom is rare. Many people never cultivate it, and some never recognize it when they have it. If you are walking this path, know that you are carrying a light the world deeply needs. And if you feel you're still learning, still practicing, that's wisdom too. Because wisdom isn't a finish line. It's a lifelong journey. Every moment of listening, every act of humility, every choice to grow instead of shrink is proof that you are evolving. So take these signs not as a checklist, but as reminders. Reminders that you're capable of living with depth, with clarity, and with courage. And in doing so, you're already wiser than most people around you.